Good evening and welcome to the May 25th, 2022 regular business meeting of the Oak Grove Community Council. My name is Valerie Chapman and I'm the vice chair of the council, and I will be chairing the meeting tonight. In Joseph Edge's absence, he has family matters to take care of this evening. So welcome to everyone. And we'd like to begin by having the board introduce themselves. So let's start with Rich. You want to go ahead and start?
Hi, I'm Rich Nippon. I live 3 blocks due south of the Fred Meyers in Oak Grove. I am a general board member.
And Mark?
Good evening. My name is Mark Elliott. I live off of Concord Road, below McLaughlin, and I am also a general board member.
Jane?
Thank you, Valerie. Jane Civiletti. I live at the intersection of Fair Oaks Ave and Oak Grove Boulevard, the treasurer.
Thank you. Danielle?
Hi, Danielle Lohman. I live on Evergreen and 21st. I am the secretary.
So we would like to have everyone introduce themselves, and by telling us your name and where you live in our area. So let's see, how do we start here? I guess if I was looking at the list, that would be easier. So Tom, start.
Yeah, Tom and Jolene Hammond. We live on Viewcrest Drive off of Thiessen.
My list is jumping around. Paul, do you want to introduce yourself?
Paul Gornick. I'm one of the directors of Oak Lodge Water Services. I live in the Jennings Lodge area.
Welcome. Sarah Jo?
Sarah Jo Chaplin, General Manager at Oak Lodge Water Services, and my parents are proud residents of Rose Villa.
Welcome. Alexa? Oh, we can't hear you, Alexa. You were unmuted, but there's no sound coming.
It's still, so she's saying move on to the next person. She's going to fix the technical problem.
All right, Gwen.
I'm Gwen. I live on Evergreen at 25th Street, yes, with Valerie, a block from the trolley trail.
David.
Hi, my name is David Hawkins. I work for Oak Lodge Water Services, and I actually live in Gladstone.
Okay. Susan Hill.
Hi, I'm Susan Keel. I actually live in Oak Grove, and I'm on the Oak Lodge Water Services Board, but I'm here just to listen to the presentation tonight. And I live on Oak Shore Lane.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you with us.
Thanks.
I think I have my mic on.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
There you are.
It's connecting to my office headset. I'm Alexa. I'm your outreach and communication specialist at Oak Lodge Water Services. And I live in Jennings Lodge.
Nice to have you. Erin. You're muted, Erin. Do you want to unmute?
Sorry. My name is Erin Taylor, and I live off of Laurie and Courtney, about a little bit west of River Villa or Rose Villa. I mean, yeah.
Great. Nice to have you. Suzanne.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Suzanne Wolf, and I live on Southeast Avenue, which is just south of not south, it's west of McLaughlin Boulevard, near the Fred Meyer. And I just have to say, I'm loving the fact that we've got 4 people with the Oak Lodge Water Service District: Sarah, Paul, David, and Alexa. Thank you for your generous donation to support the Oak Grove Trolley Trail Festival.
Great. Thanks. Heidi.
Yes, good evening. Hi, Heidi Bullock. Pronouns are she, her. I am your newest Oak Lodge Water Services Director, Board of Directors. And I live in Jennings Lodge off of River Road and Hillside.
Great. And Pam?
I'm Pam Horan and I live at Rosevilla.
I'm looking, some of the names are just a last name, and so
May I chime in and introduce myself? I'm also with Oak Lodge Water Services. Name is Hakan Ogbeidi. I'm a water resources engineer with the district.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. And Josh?
I'm Josh Mahalan with the Oregon State Marine Board, and you can hear more about me in a little bit.
All right. And Robert?
Well, I'm assuming you mean Bob, but that's okay.
Well, it says Robert. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm Bob Bohannon. I live on Southeast Laurie, just the other side of Courtney. From sounds like I've got a new neighbor right across the way here, and I'm the North Clackamas Urban Watersheds Council representative to the Oak Grove Community Council.
Welcome. Anita.
Hi, I'm Anita Blackmar, and I live on Fair Oaks Avenue.
Okay. Welcome. Aubrey?
Sure, I'm Aubrey Koenig, and I'm actually a Portland resident, so if you're listening tonight.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you with us. Dave.
Hey, go back to Roseville.
That was, I didn't hear that, Dave. You want to try again? There you go.
I got him. Thanks.
Okay. Thelma?
Thelma Hagan Miller. I live on the corner of Southeast South View and Southeast West View.
Welcome. Chris?
Hey everyone, I'm Chris Simons. I'm on Southeast Whipple Avenue.
Welcome. And Sue?
Sue Conahan, corner of River Road and Parkview Circle.
Welcome. And Mr. Vanderbeek, your first name has floated out of my mind, and hoping it was going to come back, but it did not. So please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Baldwin Vanderbilt. I live on F Road, 3 doors up from Stringfield Park.
Oh, welcome.
Hey, and I'm sorry, whoever went before Baldwin, can you say your name again? My brain went somewhere for a minute and I didn't get your attendance.
Were you thinking it was Josh Mulholland? He's one of our presenters tonight, Danielle.
No, it was a woman.
Okay.
Sue Conahan.
Okay, Sue Conahan.
Thank you.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, welcome to everyone. Did we miss anybody? All right. Thank you.
I don't know if we got, did we get Tom Hammond?
Yes, he went first.
Okay.
So,
oh yeah,
welcome.
Tom and Doreen. Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. Can we get a update on our meeting attendance and secretary's update for attendance from the April 27th meeting?
Yeah, I have no updates from the April 27th meeting. I do have draft minutes that went out last week, and so I'm hoping that we can pass those if there are no objections or changes needed.
Well, let's ask for it. Are there any corrections to the minutes that went out or additions? In the absence of any corrections or additions, then we will assume that they are approved as sent out. Thank you, Danielle.
Yeah, and then I was just looking, the reason why I spaced out a little bit, Chris Simons, it looks like you're you've hit 5 meetings, so with your next meeting you'll be able to vote when we take any votes, so congratulations there. And then I did want to recognize we have a large number of new members tonight, so thank you. Find out when we can meet on the website. Usually, what is it, last Wednesday of every month? Fourth Wednesday of every month?
Or fourth Wednesday, yes.
Yeah, yeah. You're welcome.
Jane, can we have a treasurer's report?
Yes, the report is that there have been no contributions in the past month, and again, there were no expenditures. So our total stands at the same $1,596.18. And again, any contributions can be made at any on-point credit union office. Just tell them you'd like to make it to the Oak Grove Community Council. They will find us.
Thank you, Jane. All right, with that, we are ready to begin with our program. And so we're pleased tonight to have Josh Mulholland from the Oregon State Marine Board, who is going to share with us. So Josh?
Sure. Thank you very much. So like she said, let me adjust my screen here. My name is Josh Mulholland. I am the Environment and Policy Program Manager for the Oregon State Marine Board. Joseph asked me to come present to you a few months back because I'd given a presentation to Milwaukee, to the city of Milwaukee, their council, and he thought it would be of interest to this group as well. So I have an overview of our agency slideshow plan, kind of an abbreviated version of what I've provided the legislature in the past to as to what our agency is and kind of what we do. But before I get started, can I quickly just ask the members of the board, especially, are there anything of interest that you want me to focus on? Just so there might be some things here I kind of gloss over because I don't necessarily think they'll be relevant to this group. And there's some other things that maybe I want to focus on more. So I guess any insight into what brought me here today, so I can make sure I get you what you want, would be appreciated.
Any thoughts from the board here? I think in general, let us know what you do, and if there's some questions, perhaps there'll be some time for that.
Sure. I do see a hand up.
Yeah, Anata has her hand up.
Annika.
Yes, I just wondered if you're going to talk about wake boats and the current rules about that.
I do have some slides planned about the current rules and the rulemaking process that got us there, because that is certainly relevant to this, to your part of the Willamette. So yes, I was going to touch on that. So yes, I figured that would be of interest.
There was also in the chat message saying they'd like to hear about boating noise on the Willamette. So
I know exactly where that one's coming from, and we'll touch on that after. I don't specifically mention it in the presentation, but there's a very specific issue going on in a very specific place in your area that, yes, we can discuss.
Jane, did you have a question?
Just any other information directly regarding to the Willamette stretch here in our particular area. Any information about water going in stormwater or anything from the sanitary authority, and then plans to like they had mentioned about the noise, etc. Any issues with wildlife, aquatic animals, invertebrates, anything briefly like that. Thank you.
And before Josh gets started, I just want to remind people that if everybody mutes while he's talking, it helps with the sound for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, I'm glad I asked those questions. When I bring the presentation up, I'm not gonna be able to see this group because unlike in my office, I'm at home right now, so I don't have multiple screens at my disposal. So if someone needs to cut me off, you're just gonna have to say something. I'm not gonna see hands. Real quickly to what you just said there, Jane, our agency is not an environmental agency. Regarding the stormwater thing, we have absolutely zero nexus with anything like that. I mean, our focus is incredibly narrow. It is recreational boating, recreational boating safety, recreational boating regulation, recreational boating facilities. The other stuff is handled by other state agencies that we work with, quite a bit. I mean, for stormwater things, I'd put a call into DEQ first and see what information I got there, or the state Oregon Water Resources Board, and then for Fish and Wildlife, again, that we rely on our Fish and Wildlife partners, so for that Department of Fish and Wildlife, to interject on behalf of fish and things like that. So if there is an impact to certain fisheries or habitat or anything like that, that is the Department of Fish and Wildlife's, their role is to come inform us for our rulemakings. Okay, so I want to bring up this presentation again. It is a very quick overview of what we do, and then I had a couple specific slides to the Willamette, to your area, and then I wanted to leave as much time for questions as possible. I figured that would be the most beneficial. So I'm going to bring this up. Give me a second. I'm not used to doing it on a single screen. Let's do this. Okay, and okay. Are you looking at my full slideshow, or no? Are you looking at me? I'm seeing good things, and I can see you guys over there, so I'm going to start.
All good.
Okay.
We can see it fine.
Awesome. All right. So very briefly, I thought it was useful to put our mission up. I won't take you through our whole strategic plan, but our mission is to serve the recreational boating public through education, enforcement, access, and environmental stewardship for a safe and enjoyable experience. I'm supposed to have that memorized. I think I actually don't. I had to read it off of the screen. But it really does give you a sense of what we focus on. We are all things recreational boating. And it certainly influences a lot of our decisions. In that strategic plan that I mentioned, there's some specific goals laid out. Reducing voter conflict, improving access, which was a big one, improving collaboration, that is in between boaters and non-boaters alike. Improving boater proficiency, so we have a pretty robust boating education program, and we put a lot of resources into that. And then other things to serve boaters. We partner with rental businesses. We regulate to an extent outfitting and guide operations, again, with the customer in mind, to make sure that everyone has a safe and enjoyable boating experience. You don't need to know the breakdown of our agency, except to know that we are a very small agency because we have a kind of a niche thing where there's less than 40 of us. Almost half of those are in business service related type things. Something important to note is that we are overseen by a 5-member governor appointed board. In our current board, 3 of our members are from the greater Portland area. And then we also have one from Bend, and our chair is from the South Coast. Our board members serve 4-year terms. They can do 2 terms. So one of our board members has now been serving for 8 years. They weigh in on significant policy decisions that our agency makes, but our board meets quarterly, and I work, every day. So they are kind of big picture, whereas a lot of the minutiae at the agency is not handled at the governor appointed board member level. Okay, quickly, just some of the programs we have here at the Marine Board. Boating safety program is the biggest one in terms of expenditures. Now, while that doesn't include an education program, anyone that runs a motorized boat in the state, with a few exceptions, has to have a boater education card. To get that, you have to take a boating education course and pass a test. Similar to a driver's license in some ways, dissimilar in others. So we oversee that education program. But our number one expenditure is contracts with county sheriff's offices and state police for marine law enforcement. We often make the boating regulations. We train the officers on how to do marine law enforcement, but no one in our agency, we don't have ticketing authority, citing authority. We are not a law enforcement entity. So we rely completely on our sheriff's offices to do the marine law enforcement work. This is often confusing for a lot of folks that call us to complain about something or want us to fix a situation or cite a boater or something like that. And I say, look, that's great, but this has to go to your sheriff's office. This is not what we do. I'd also point out that just because you provide a sheriff's or a county sheriff with some funds for something, it doesn't mean you get to tell them what to do. We have a varied relationships with all these sheriffs that we contract with. I would say the relationship with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office is generally good, but there's certainly times when they've probably been frustrated with us, and I think that frustration at times goes both ways. Boating facilities is our other big ticket thing that we spend money on. But we don't own or operate any facilities. We don't own really anything as an agency. We provide grants and technical support, often in the form of working through permits and stuff like that, to counties, to park districts, to state parks, to Fish and Wildlife in some places, to the federal government and their access areas. So we don't own any accesses. But more often than not, if it's a boating access, we and our money was involved in some way, shape, or form. And when we do provide funds for an access, we lay out certain expectations. We don't just, if we're going to provide funding for an access, then we expect that access to be open to the boating public, usually both motorized and non-motorized. I'm not going to go into the numbers of the different things. This is from 2021 or 2020, I believe, actually. But just I want to give you a sense that we are working on access projects all over the state, and quite a few of them at that. Some other smaller programs or other things we have in the agency, customer service. And I mean, really, we were initially set up to be the DMV of boats. We register boats, we title boats, we do all that. And most of our interactions with the public is through that, people registering their boats. I mentioned earlier we do register outfitters and guides. And that's not just actually boating and fishing guides, that's all outfitters and guides in the state. So even like hiking guides or rock climbing guides or like a birding type guide, biking guides, they all have to register through us. And the main purpose of that whole program is to make sure that those providing guiding services to Oregon's public are vetted. We're doing background checks and things like that. So if you go out with an outfitter and guide in Oregon, you at least feel comfortable with the fact that the guide has been reviewed. We have a clean marina program. We work with ports and marinas around the state to make sure that they are doing what they can do to be good environmental stewards, and we provide them some resources for that. I mentioned the education course already. I won't go into that again, but we've issued almost 400,000 of those cards since the inception of the mandatory education program a couple decades ago. We have an Adopt a River program, which provides funds to primarily solve, and they orchestrate river cleanup events all over the state. A burgeoning issue, and one that's incredibly prevalent, unfortunately, on the Willamette River, not so much in your area, but very so just downstream, is the growing number of abandoned and derelict vessels on Oregon's waterways. This is also a pretty prevalent issue on the coast in some coastal ports. This is a very small program that we have in terms of the funding that we have for it. Statutorily, we can use $150,000 every 2 years to remove abandoned and derelict vessels. And usually, again, we're relying on law enforcement to do that, and then we can provide reimbursements. But I can tell you that if you go around, kind of the Ross Island area right now, or go to a few places on the Columbia, you're going to see a whole lot more than $150,000 worth of work. Removing sunk boats and disposing of them properly is incredibly expensive. But we do what we can, and this is one that's received increased legislative interest in a good way over the past few sessions. I think there's more and more lawmakers realizing that there's an epidemic problem in Oregon with just aging vessels and them not getting disposed of properly. So I'm hoping to see some increased resources on this front going forward. Lastly, we have an aquatic invasive species program. So anytime boaters come in from out of state, they have to stop at inspection stations for aquatic invasive species. Fish and Wildlife runs that program, but we're the funding source. So we basically write them a pretty big check every 2 years to do all that. And we work with them to disseminate information and do outreach and all that. Oops, wrong way, sorry. So when I gave this a similar presentation to the city of Milwaukee, they asked some questions about our jurisdiction. So I'll address those briefly. All of our authority is laid out in statute. We're an executive branch agency. We don't have lawmaking or rulemaking authority unless it's provided to us by the legislature in statute. One of the things that we probably maybe the most interest to you is that we do have the authority to make local boating regulations based on a number of factors, really anything. We can make boating regulations, speed, slow no wake zones, no towed water sport zones, speed limits, complete like no boating allowed areas. That's all within our authority. And there's also a statute that says local jurisdictions cannot make laws that disagree with ours, which is something that at least a few municipalities recently have taken issue with, and it's not something I can change. That is laid out in statute, and it would take an act of the legislature to change it. So I'm sure that some of you are interested in our rulemaking process. This is probably the most high profile thing that we typically do, or at least what we've done recently. And it's also the part of the agency that I oversee. So for those boating regulations that I just mentioned, we can initiate a rulemaking process at any time. Sometimes it comes from concerns from either law enforcement or occasionally our staff, although we're not a field staff agency. We're 40 of us all based out of Salem in the Salem office. In many ways, law enforcement are our eyes and ears on the water. But if they have concerns, they'll bring it to me, and then I'll bring it to the board, and we can change boating regulations that way. Sometime a legislative action prompts us to change our rules to align with new statutes. And then we also receive public petitions. Any member of the public can actually petition any state agency to change their rules. And state agencies are obligated to at least seek comment on those before issuing a deny or accept notice. I will say that a lot of the big agencies tend to not follow the laws the way they should, but we make it a point to make sure that we do, and we do a public process for pretty much anything. So anytime we receive a petition, no matter how impossible it might be, we're going to at least seek some public comment before making a decision on it. And then for rulemaking, depending on the rulemaking, the scope, the scale, we may use an advisory committee, which is a group of representative stakeholders to help advise us on those rules. The most complicated advisory committee I think that our agency has ever dealt with was on the lower Willamette rulemaking that started in 2019 and culminated January of last year. It was about an 18-month rulemaking to completely reevaluate the boating rules on the Willamette River from Willamette Falls the whole way to the Columbia. Because there were a lot of complaints, a lot of conflicts, and just the Portland area growing and growing more, it really prompted a reevaluation of what was going on the river from a boating perspective. There was a rule advisory committee for that rulemaking. It was 28 or so folks. It included city government folks, state government folks, boaters, floating homeowners, swimmers, people that had very little nexus with boating, but an interest in the river overall. That long rulemaking culminated in the rules that we currently have now, and they've been in place since May of last year. The stretch of river in your area now has a complete restriction on the pretty controversial activity of wake surfing, as well as pretty strict regulations for anyone doing any other towed water sports in vicinity to docks or other on-water structures. This stretch of the Willamette is the most regulated in terms of specialized restrictions that we have in the state of Oregon. And that also includes some of the water above the falls, as well as into like downtown Portland. But the Willamette from Newburgh to downtown Portland has the most specialized regulations in the state because it's a complicated stretch. The use is so varied. It required some pretty unique regulations. Okay, I have some other slides potentially to address some questions, but I'm going to see where the questions take us, and I want to kick it back to the board and the members of the public for a Q&A session, and I'm happy to stay here as long as you all need me. So thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. So if we have people that have questions, raise your hand either you can raise it verbally, physically, or if you know how to put your hand up, that would be great.
And the noise thing came up. I know that's going to come up in a question, so I'm just going to jump on that one now. So in the middle of last year, it came to our attention that a one user, a very small group of users, was using an incredibly loud older jet ski in the Meldrum Bar area. Now, it's technically not you, right? That's Gladstone. But I can't tell exactly where the line is on the map, so I'm sure that many of you spend some time in this area. We sent the sheriff's office, well, we asked the sheriff's office to go out there a few times. They did. They talked to the individual, said that currently they weren't violating any rules. I disagree with that, but that's, again, just because you give a sheriff's office money doesn't mean you tell them what to do. We sent some staff down there to kind of evaluate the situation. And it was indeed pretty kind of egregious. And this operator, at least the primary offender, did not seem interested in stopping his activity voluntarily, even though it was causing a whole lot of conflict with everyone else on the river, as well as anyone even close to the river. The activity stopped for most of the winter. We did receive a petition to address it. Our board, and there are some videos and things involved, our board saw them, agreed that this activity had to be stopped, and put temporary rules in place that should stop the activity. You know, those temporary rules are in place throughout this summer, and we have initiated the permanent rulemaking process to find a more permanent solution. Right now, I am just kind of waiting to see if the offending individuals will come back and how the sheriff's office will handle it, because enforcing noise restrictions on the water is not something that they say that they can do easily. So right now, and I think was it Paul or something? I know you're interested in this. Right now, I'm holding my breath that the offenders got the idea that they are no longer welcome here, at least doing the activities that they were doing. But it's yet to be seen. I think Meldrum Bar is probably still underwater, would be my guess. So once the summer, comes in, we're gonna see, and our agency is poised to do whatever we need to do to empower the sheriff's office to address what is becoming a pretty egregious local problem. Sorry, long-winded answer. I know that one's gonna come up.
That's definitely the area, Meldrum Bar. I live on Meldrum Avenue, about a quarter of a mile from the river.
So Susan, I saw your hand go up, and then Heidi after Susan's.
All right, my question was about noise too, but is there kind of a standard for noise level? And I'm not talking about this one that's by Meldrum, but I mean in general in this area.
There is a statewide standard. Now, what for boat motor noise, and it's very specific to motor noise.
Right.
What kind of noise are you interested in? Motor?
Yes.
Yes.
This would be a turbine engine that's on a boat.
You have like a wind or an airboat operating on the Willamette River in your area?
Well, it's like an airplane motor that's on it.
I'm fascinated more than anything. So I might actually follow up with you on that, because I'm going to touch base with the sheriff's office, because I'm not aware of this boat out there. And if there's a boat with something like a jet turbine on it, I have to assume that it violates the statewide standard, which is 88 decibels as measured from shore. But something like that, the river's not wide enough there for that to be under that standard, I would guess. And honestly, if it's out there and it sounds as loud as you make it seem, I would put a call straight into the sheriff's office.
Okay, and I'm a boater, so this, I mean, I'm not being overly sensitive, so.
No, I appreciate it. If that's going on, that's probably something. And I'm a boater too. And I mean, a lot of our agency staff are boaters, and I like to think that I'm always looking out for the good of all boaters. And sometimes that means certain boaters need to be regulated so to not affect the kind of greater boating good. I mean, that's oftentimes when we do regulations, I look at it from that perspective.
Heidi and then Susan.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Valerie. I was just wondering if you, Josh, could pop in the chat or somewhere, share it with the note takers, where we can find these regulations. I just want to revisit them. I saw them quickly on that one slide summarized, but I'd be interested in being able to access that. So wherever we can find that online.
Sure. I'll do that. I'll do that right now. And we have our own specialized page for just Willamette River regulations because, again, like I said, they are very complicated.
Great. And then I see Mark and then Sarah.
And I said 88,
Oh, yeah, thank
and
you.
I said 88, and I did mean 84. I just saw something in the chat, and you
Okay.
got my
Yeah, I
correction.
think it's still lawnmower. I just wanted to mention that because it's better frame of reference for me.
And it's measured. We have different standards for measured at boat, but the measured from shoreline is the most applicable one because the sheriff's office is usually not. If someone's offending, they're not going to go rev up their boat while the sheriff's office stands there a foot away with the sound meter. So it's as measured from shoreline because that's when typically our law enforcement staff can actually be successful in enforcing some noise ordinances.
Okay, so we have Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. Though the noise is definitely a concern at times. It is summer and I love people that love to get outdoors and stuff. I'm more interested in kind of the safety. I don't know if I missed it, but anything there that you can report on, like as far as how injuries or what kind of accidents and stuff occurred from the different sporting boats that are out there, whether it's the jet skis or again, people being pulled. Again, I'm a boater. I'm a fisherman, more on the fishing side with a sled boat. And
Sure.
It is painful to go out there in the summer and be able to enjoy just, relaxing on the water without looking out for all the lack of terms of idiots in some of those narrower channels. But I would love to know more facts about like how many accidents and safety things where safety was called.
Sure. So we have to keep very detailed statistics on boating fatalities. We have to report all that to the Coast Guard. It's not a great statistic to look at what boats are causing certain problems. I can tell you that boating fatalities in Oregon have been on the rise over the past few, at least last decade or so. Much of that is attributed to non-motorized boaters, and almost all of it is contributed to non-motorized boaters, usually novice ones without life jackets. We have, I would say the single biggest issue from a boating perspective that we have in the state is life jacket compliance or lack of it. And it is what we are focusing more and more of our resources on, more and more of our legislative focus on, because it's heartbreaking to see all these fatalities. I think 2 years ago, there was over 30 of them, which is a catastrophic number. And all but 4 or 5 would have been addressed if someone was wearing a life jacket. As far as injuries, now, if there are significant injuries, let's see if we can get this right, significant injuries requiring more than first aid or any kind of accident where there's more than $1,000 worth of damage, it is required that be reported to the Marine Board. My guess is 90%, 95% of the time that does not happen. So I do not have great statistics for you on injuries and stuff. I do know that I've heard many pretty gross anecdotal things about certain, towed water sports participants hurting themselves and breaking legs and stuff like that. But I don't have reliable information for you on that, Sarah. So I apologize. I'm not going to make up numbers.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Bob, do you want to, Bohanna, your hand is up.
Yeah, okay. So I've got a couple of things, Josh. First off, I'd like to go down to Meldrum Bar Park and eat lunch or just kind of hang out, watch the fishermen, watch the boaters, that sort of thing. I must say that I am not a boater, don't own one. I actually do have a little car topper, hasn't been in the water 10 years probably. So don't really have a real dog in the fight other than just enjoying the water a bit. But I know the Marine Board has put a buttload of money into Meldrum Bar Park, into the boat ramp down there and a bunch of other facilities. And as you know, the city of Gladstone locked it up basically last year. You now have to pay a daily fee to get to the water. And just kind of wondering why the state and all the other residents have paid in quite a bit of money to upgrade the facility. And now Gladstone's shut it off to make it a little money-making enterprise. Kind of just a little thorn. I'll let you do that, then I've got something else.
All right, so I can do that one because I know probably more about the funding that went into Meldrum than any other facility in the state, because when first when this noise issue came up, and I was meeting with Gladstone to try to put some pressure on the city to do something, which they didn't, but it's fine. I made sure I knew exactly what happened, what went into Meldrum. The Marine Board money that went into that is about 1/10 of the state money. Most of that's Fish and Wildlife money. There is a buttload of state money in it, a couple $1 million, but the Marine Board's part is, I think, 150,000. But let's say it was all of ours. There is always a provision in our contracts that allows them to charge a not relatively nominal fee, so long, for people to use it, as long as they can show that goes back into the maintenance of the site. I know that we have not tried to pursue any issues with Meldrum Bar with Gladstone. So I guess, and this is that facilities program that is, I'm not the best one to speak to. I don't manage that program. But if Meldrum was doing things not in line with that contract, or Gladstone was, I'm sorry, we would be on them.
And like I said, it's just kind of a little bit of a problem. The public has put a lot of money in that down there, between not only Meldrum Bar and the park, but over on the Clackamas Riverside as well. But now we've also got the Rainierson Pond project back in there that is part of the Portland Harbor cleanup Superfund stuff. So there's a lot of public money down there, and they've basically made it a de facto private property, the whole riverbank through there, unless you're willing to pay I don't even know what it is, $3 or $5 or whatever it is a day to get it. Sure, unless you're a Gladstone resident, and then they'll let you in for nothing. So anyway, that's they're handing out permits to Gladstone folks. My other question or concern is through some of the other meetings that I attend here and there. We saw the rulemaking come up for the Willamette a couple of years ago, and I know the city of Milwaukee was kind of blindsided. They didn't realize that those rules were on their way, so they were a little excited there for a while. And I know they met with you guys to get caught up. But the issue I've got, once again, I'm not a boater, not a water skier, I have no interest in it at all, other than the river belongs to everybody. And it looks like you're really, really playing favorites, pushing out the wakeboarders. And yeah, I know they make a lot of racket and they're all over the place and stuff. I get that. The people that live down there, I understand, your boats and your docks are bouncing all over hell. But the trick is where are they supposed to go? Because I understand there's also now rules in the upper pool above the falls that are either in place or getting ready to come in place. Just kind of these people just being pushed out. And the word is kind of backdoor is that there's somebody within one of the canoe/kayak groups that's got a good buddy within the Marine Board's got their ear. So I understand that that's where it came from. The kayakers and canoers have been pushing for this for a while. So just kind of give you a heads up. You're not looking real good. It's kind of.
Oh, our agency's been real beat up over the last few years. So your first part of your question, I'll try to be brief in the answer. I get that.
I'm sorry for being so long on it.
Oh no, you're fine. I just want to make sure I can address all the different facets there. Where should people go? I get the question all the time. Anymore, I don't have much of a good answer. A lot of the regulations in place that are problematic, and then the pressure that has put us in this spot are from the legislature. I mean, in the Newburgh Pool, so just upriver, where towed water sports are really a lot more appropriate because it's big and much wider and deeper. Over the past 3 long sessions, the legislature has now completely banned any towed water sports for anyone with a decent size, one of those like wake boat. And I have trouble telling people, it's like, yeah, you can just go to Hag Lake because Hag Lake is at capacity and then some already. The Columbia River is relatively underutilized from a recreational boating perspective. I can tell you that more wake boaters were up on the Columbia last year than we've ever seen before, just reports from some of those facilities up there. But for the Willamette anymore, from Newburgh down to at least the Hawthorne Bridge in Portland, where much of that is decent towed water sports water. It's also very busy with a whole lot of other folks. For better or for worse, it's just off limits. And again, some of that was us. A lot of that was legislature, and then a lot of that was also different. And sure, I mean, the canoe group that you were mentioning, Willamette Riverkeeper, yeah, I mean, they've played a role, as well as the city of Portland put a lot of pressure on us to eliminate certain boating activities. The long and the short of it is wake surfing especially has become you're either a wake surfer or you really don't like wake surfers, and they became this minority that everyone seems to be happy to push out. But it is unfortunate for those folks that like to do those activities and are in the greater Portland area, because there's no good alternatives. So you had other parts of that question maybe, and I know I need to probably wrap this up. So Valerie, if you need me to stop, I'll stop.
Yeah, we're close here to the end. Bob, did he answer you sufficiently so that we can?
Yeah, it's pretty good. There is no good answer, so it's, you know, I understand it's not a problem. I just was a little concerned that we've got kind of a backdoor deal going here on some folks. And,
I don't think there's I mean, I would disagree with that, and I think yes, I will talk to the Willamette Riverkeeper director on occasion. He's still actively threatening to sue us too, so it's not exactly a amenable relationship. But no, I mean that's one of the stakeholders groups that do weigh in, and all of that cumulatively, I think, does have an impact on our board. And Portland's getting busier, and I can't create more waterways to boat, and so we've had more conflicts, and that's just the reality. So thank you, everyone.
Well, Josh, I want to say thank you very much, and I'm saying thank you as the mother of a wakeboarder who finds that there's no place to be on the river anymore, and who actually is a resident of Oak Grove. So I just wanted to throw all that in. Anyway, thank you very much. We need to move on. We have a team here from the Oak Lodge Water Services District, and they're going to be speaking with us about wastewater improvement projects. So Alexa, you should be able to share screen. Great, thank you.
I wanted to thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Sarah Jo Chaplin, and I'm the General Manager at Oak Lodge Water Services. And we're here tonight to share some information with you about 2 upcoming wastewater improvement projects. I'd like to start first with introductions, followed by a brief overview of the Oak Lodge Water Services, and then the background behind those 2 projects. Tonight, I'm joined by 2 of our board members, Director Heidi Bullock and Treasurer Paul Gornick, who will be helping us with the presentation. And we're also joined by Plant Superintendent David Hawkins, and also Project Manager and Water Resources Engineer Hakan Ogbeidi. And then Alexa Morris is our Outreach and Communications Specialist. I'm passing the presentation over to Director Bullock.
Good evening. Yes, thanks for having us tonight. First, I want to go over the commitments to our customers. Oak Lodge Water Services provides essential water services to our community. We are committed to protecting public health, providing excellent customer service, making smart investments and keeping rates affordable, and keeping streams and rivers clean. Excuse me, we are made up of a district board, and this is the Oak Lodge Water Services Board. It is an elected board, and we serve on a volunteer basis. Like you, we live right here and are all customers of Oak Lodge Water Services. We are one district. This started in 2017 when the sanitary combined with the water services. So Oak Lodge Water Services has been one district providing 3 services since 2017. Delivering safe and reliable drinking water from Clackamas River, collecting the wastewater from homes and businesses, treating it and returning it to the Willamette River. While also protecting the water quality of our streams and rivers. So here's a little bit of what our infrastructure looks like. We have 100 miles of drinking water pipes, 100 miles of sewer pipes, 15.6 million gallons of water storage, 773 fire hydrants. Each one is inspected and tested as part of the fire hydrant replacement program. This work includes flushing, painting, and repairing the hydrants. And this is all very important to ensure that these hydrants are accessible and easy for fire crews to get to in times of need. There are also 5 lift stations. These lift stations move our wastewater to the treatment plant, which is also known as the water reclamation facility. The lift station pumps wastewater from low points in the system so it can continue its way and reach the facility treatment of the treatment facility. The water reclamation facility treats 1.5 billion gallons of wastewater on average each year. This is just a part of the infrastructure that provides water services in our area. This is just one quick snapshot. Next, I'm going to introduce you to the treasurer of the board, Paul Gornick, who's going to talk to you about the Oak Lodge, some of the projects that Oak Lodge has completed.
Thanks, Heidi. Hi, everyone. Before I jump into those projects, here's a map of the district's boundary. While we're mostly in the unincorporated area, we overlap into the city of Milwaukee and the city of Gladstone. We have, I think, under 100 customers in the city of Milwaukee and around 800 customers that are within the corporate city limits of Gladstone. We provide services to around 29,000 people, including both homes and businesses. And recently, you may have heard, the board of directors had been seeking to reorganize the governance of Oak Lodge Water Services as a joint water and sanitary authority. And on May 5th of this year, Clackamas County Board of Commissioners approved the transition from a district to an authority. And we will have, we're expecting vote for the directors to be coming up this summer. In addition to the authority, we have also completed the Boardman Wetlands Project, which protects the environment and improves water quality. That's Boardman Creek from Jennings Avenue to the north is where that park is, if you, hopefully some of you have visited that. We've also completed water tank seismic upgrades, which means we're now prepared for an earthquake, at least for that portion of our system. And the water reclamation facility down on the Willamette River, just near River Villa Park, was completed in 2012, 10 years ago. And that's why we're here today to talk about two new wastewater improvement projects. Before we dive into those projects, next slide. This is the type of project milestones we work through during the project. You can see we have a budget approval prior to the project. We work in a planning and design phase, and then before we go to construction. The final approval of the prioritization of these necessary improvements for our customers is done by the board of directors. Funding options and recommendations are reviewed by our budget committee, which is made up of the 5 directors and 5 citizen members, and the board makes the final decision on those recommendations. Improvement projects are identified as part of an overall planning process in each service area, which is called master planning. We completed the 30-year water master plan in 2020, and the 30-year wastewater master plan will be completed in December of this year. The projects are identified from the long-term from that master plan, are then pulled annually into a 5-year capital plan that are then ranked in a priority order. Each year, as part of the budget process, the prioritized projects and their budget costs will be reviewed by the budget committee for recommendations to the board for budget adoption. Next, I'd like to introduce you to project manager and water resources engineer, Hakan Ogbedi, who will share more about the trunk main capacity project. Hakan.
Thank you, Director Gornick. So the trunk main capacity project is one of 2 wastewater projects that we'll be presenting here this evening. This first one is really focused on the transportation of wastewater. It's all about transporting the wastewater from homes, businesses, and getting everything that goes down the drain, getting it to our water reclamation facility for treatment. The next project after this will be focused on the treatment. This trunk main capacity project is really focused on the lowest reach of our collection system, our wastewater collection system. There's a limit to how much water we can move through that lowest reach. And to reduce the risk of any wastewater escaping out of our system and getting into our local waterways, notably the Willamette River, we really need to have the capacity to handle all the wastewater all year round. This is a very core issue of Oak Lodge Water Services, and we're committed to addressing this issue, in part because there have been some sanitary sewer overflow events, in particular happening following winter rainstorms, where this lowest reach of trunk main has been there's been too much water coming in, and it's overwhelmed this last stretch of trunk main. On the next slide here, you'll see a very brief map, not of our entire district, but of about a 1.5 mile section of the district up along the Willamette River. I should actually say authority at this point, because we've recently changed from Oak Lodge Water Services District to a legal authority. But we transport quite a bit of the wastewater that's generated within Oak Lodge, makes it from lift station 2, moving north here in the same direction as the Willamette River up to the water reclamation facility. And there's a sanitary sewer trunk main that's installed below ground, very close to the banks of the Willamette, because it's the lowest point. Anything that drains from any home anywhere within our service area gets intercepted by this trunk main. And this is the trunk main that is a little bit light on capacity. Oak Lodge and DEQ are both very eager to see this project unfold. It means a lot to us to be able to get 100% of the wastewater to treatment all year round. In this same map here, I've put a few pictures here. You can see lift station 2. It's not much above ground. Most of that lift station is below ground. There are pumps below ground. And as the wastewater collects low down, it gets a little lift. And from there, it's allowed to flow the rest of the way, all the way to the water reclamation facility by gravity. And as it does so, it moves around River Forest Lake, which is a bit of a pinch point, we find, one of the most restrictive parts of this, this route. We're looking at a few different options for how to address the capacity deficit that we're experiencing. And on the next slide here, I think you will see a couple of the options that we laid forward. As the trunk main goes around River Forest Lake there, parts of it are 18 feet deep. And the conventional way that we normally would increase the capacity of a trunk main is to dig down, find localized points where there's maybe a bottleneck in the line, in the pipe that's very deep there. When around River Forest Lake, we're talking 18-foot depths, and they're very deep, and the conventional methods start to become prohibitive. But we're still looking at them. So we have a study going on right now. We are surveying the line. We are having engineers do hydraulic models, really understanding exactly how the water is flowing through this deep buried pipe. At the same time, we're also considering a second option, an option number 2 that's available to us right now. At the moment, we have another project going to rebuild our lift station. So lift station 2 that you saw on the previous slide is slated to be rebuilt next summer. As that gets rebuilt, there's an opportunity that's available to us to construct a force main, a separate pipeline, a brand new pipeline that would keep the wastewater at pressure for the 1.5 miles until it makes it to the water reclamation facility. So that option is also being considered as part of this trunk main capacity project in its early phases right now. This is, you probably saw this slide earlier. Director Gornick discussed this slide a little bit. This is the process that many of our bigger projects will take. We had a budget approval process this spring. The trunk main capacity project was approved to go ahead with the planning and engineering design. And we're aiming for construction in the next couple years to come. The planning phase that's underway, I mentioned it very briefly earlier. You might see some surveyors out if you're in this area, and they will be surveying that trunk main. With that, those two options and the trunk main capacity project, as that unfolds, I want to pass this on to David Hawkins. David is our plant superintendent at the water reclamation facility, so he oversees day-to-day operations there. David?
All right, thank you, Hakan. So the second part of the presentation today is going to be a brief overview of number two of the major projects down at the WRF. Well, one for the conveyance system and then one for the water reclamation facility. So the second project is basically going to be an additional step in the treatment project, and that's called tertiary treatment. We're not really sure. We just received budget approval for this, but it's still in the early stages. And it turns out that a lot of times with projects this large, we could see it maybe going for another 2 to 3 years before completion. And why are we doing it? It's because the new permit that we were given by DEQ is more stringent. And to meet this more stringent permit, we will need to add tertiary filter to maintain compliance. All right, so where are we? If you guys have never been down to the treatment plant, we're right next to the trestle. We're south of the trestle on the Willamette River at the end of Renton Avenue, right next to River Villa Park. The treatment plant was originally built in 1960, and as mentioned earlier by Paul, the last major upgrade was in 2012. We currently treat about 2.8 million gallons of sewage a day, and the plant capacity inside of the treatment plant right now is expected to serve our community until at least 2035. So why is DEQ giving us a more stringent permit? What has changed? Well, a little backstory here. DEQ, excuse me, requires all wastewater treatment plants to have some form of an NPDES permit, and that's the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. Whenever treated wastewater is discharged into waters of the state. And that's kind of a tricky term because it basically means anything that's a wetland, pond, lake, stream, bog, river, anytime we discharge water into a waterway, we have to have an NPDES permit. So why is this new permit more strict? Well, our old permit was issued in 2005. And since then, the discharge standards for the Willamette Basin have changed and they've been tightened up a bit. So the new permit that DEQ just issued us, and it actually went into effect on May 1st, brings us up to these newer basin standards. In order to comply with this new permit, Oak Lodge will have to install the tertiary treatment. Okay, so this is a list of some of the treatment plants in the Willamette Basin. The ones on the left there are treatment plants in the area that have tertiary treatment, and some of these treatment plants, like Clean Water Services and Tri-Cities, have had them for decades. On the right, there are treatment plants that do not have tertiary treatment. It should be noted that the plants that are on the right-hand side of the list are still working off of older, less stringent permits. Kellogg Creek is due for their new permit, and this is according to the DEQ's permit issuance website. Kellogg Creek is due for a new permit in 2023, with Tryon Creek due in 2024. So as you can see, DEQ is moving to bring all treatment facilities in the Willamette Basin up to the current basin standards. So where is tertiary going to go? Right now, the fashionable theory is that we would be putting it right here in those two grassy patches that you see on your screen, just west of where our current UV disinfection channels are. when the plant was upgraded in 2012, the engineers purposefully left this area open for future expansion. And there's even pipe stubbed off in the ground ready for expansion if we need it. And of course, this is all, this area being utilized will be contingent on the technology that we choose and if the footprint will actually fit there. So real quick, I wanted to go over some of the common tertiary treatment options that you may see at a wastewater treatment plant. The first one on the left there, we have sand filters. In the middle, we have membrane filters, and then on the right, chemical clarifiers. And there are different shapes, styles, and sizes of all of these technologies. And by no means is this a comprehensive list of all tertiary treatment. It's just a few of the more common things you might see out there. So how do these options work? Well, the diagram on the left, sand filters, it works exactly like your Brita water filter. Water is fed in from the top. It filters down through the media where the contaminants are removed and clean water passes through the bottom. The diagram in the middle is a newer technology that's called membrane filtration. It's very similar to sand filters, but water is fed in through the bottom into a series of membrane tubes with very small openings, and then it catches the contaminants and the clean water passes through. And lastly, we have chemical clarifiers, and that's the one on the right. And it's a bit different from the first two diagrams. Chemical clarifiers basically take the water and we add a coagulant like polymer or alum. And that bonds to the solids particles and it makes them heavier. The heavier sludge then settles out, the cleaner water pours over through the top, and then the sludge is then processed back through the digester system. So there you have it, guys. That's the end of my presentation. Next, I would like to introduce General Manager of Oak Lodge Water Services, Sarah Jo Chaplin, who will talk more about the timeline on these projects. Sarah Jo?
Thank you. The board has currently approved the budget for the fiscal year 2023, and in that, part of it is the budget for the engineering project to figure out what kind of tertiary treatment best fits the water reclamation facility. And that will also include the tail end costs, which is the required maintenance costs, because different filters may have different maintenance costs. We're still in the early stages, as David mentioned. We're about 2 to 3 years out until completion. The budget committee has discussed both projects, and the board has also examined them in the last board meeting, and we will be heading for a rates discussion at the next board meeting. Both projects will be financed with a combination of customer rates, current funds, while researching funding options such as grants and loans. We're in conversations right now with the state about the range of funding options which might be available to us. The district is a self-sustaining utility that continuously looks for efficiencies and ways to keep rate increases as low as possible while maintaining a safe and reliable water service. I wanted to let all of you know that we are doing tours of the water reclamation facility this summer. You can email or text Alexa to sign up, and her information is on the screen. And I wanted to thank everyone for your time. Does anyone have any questions?
If we stop screen sharing so that we can see people, we can see if people's hands are up. I see Annika. Yeah. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a little off the beaten track, but because I'm involved in parks and the Parks Advisory Committee, I get input from a lot of people about what they want in the Parks District. And a new idea that came up recently is the part of the water reclamation facility that's a big lawn area on the southeast part. That's just a blank lawn basically right now. And some people want to see if it could be a partner with the Parks District and have a playground there. So just wanted to put it out there. I'm not expecting any kind of significant answer, but I think it's kind of a cool idea.
Thank you for absolutely letting us know. We are waiting to figure out where various tertiary treatment can go, but we will keep in the back of our head. Thank you for letting us know that that's an idea that's come up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there other questions? Can I ask the maybe obvious question? How much will these, what's the total cost of these projects? What's the estimated total cost?
So we are still in the process of figuring out what the costs are going to be for the trunk main capacity project. The two different options could have very different costs. And so we're anticipating being able to have the recommendations to the board for the August meeting on that one, so that they can consider the options for that. And on the tertiary treatment one, it is very much going to depend on the type of tertiary treatment that is expected. And we are not, we know that it is going to be, we're anticipating it's going to be $6 million or more. We just don't know the exact dollar amount at this time.
Valerie, this is Susan Keel. I'd say we'd love a chance to come back as we get more into the process to talk to you about what choices seem the best, and actually we'd be interested in your input on that too. And that always helps to be able to talk to real customers, I call it, and to get some sense of how this is all working for you. So love to come back with things when we have updates on it.
Well, we would love to have you. I know that. So that we look forward to hearing, to hearing more about that. So did I see a hand someplace, a question?
Yeah, this is Rich Nietman. I just think it's probably worthwhile to make it clear to all the people from the community here that the change from to an authority from a district isn't in any way that these are requirements that are given to either the district or the authority, whatever happened to be in charge, that any increase in price isn't because of the change in governance. I think people get confused a lot, think, well, now they're authority, they're just going to start charging us.
I really appreciate you making that point. I would note that the new requirements for DEQ, our new permits started May 1st, and we weren't made an authority until May 5th. But I really appreciate you making that very valid point.
I do think that we should add, though, that the becoming an authority gives the Water Services Authority a better opportunity for long-term fund planning, because it solidifies the area. And so I think everybody was in agreement that that's a great idea, so that when you go out to find funding for these projects, there is some sense of a stable community, that it isn't going to be broken up sometime soon. So
I would say to you that if any of you have an opportunity to come for the tour, it's a real service to the community as a whole. And it really makes you realize how much goes into the work there. And you may have spotted the photograph of the tour that we had. Mark was out front as part of the tour group. Kind of just catch him from the back there. But I think you would enjoy it if you haven't had the opportunity.
well, with that, since I don't see further questions. Oh, Gwen, you had a question.
Hello, about upgrading the mains. Are those two options mutually exclusive, or is there any thought to a system that would run by gravity most of the time, but then you would have extra pumping power during the times of the year or during the storms when they needed it?
And Hakan would be better able to see if there's an option A, B, as opposed to just A or just B.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. There are more options available. There's an option 1 and an option 2, and they're at the far extremes. But very much, if the engineering analysis produces a middle ground, in which both it makes sense to run both, then of course we'll be looking into that too.
Well, I want to thank you, the whole team, Sarah Jo and David and Hakan and Paul and Alexa, for all of your presentation tonight. It was very valuable to us, and a reminder to the community that our meetings are recorded so that if there's information that you want to go, we'd like to hear again, you can go on the Oak Grove Community Council website, and our meetings are recorded so that you will be able to hear that. So thank you. Thank you again. So we'd like to move at this point to having some committee updates. So we have a report from the Trolley Trail Committee. I don't know if it was Suzanne or Mark that was planning to do that.
Mark,
Suzanne, why don't you go ahead?
Why don't I go ahead? Okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't going to do that, but let's see, what can I tell you? Oh, I can tell everybody that we are short of just $300 to meet our budget expenses. And so we are pleased about that. That will allow us to close Oak Grove Boulevard from Rupert down to Cedar. So that is good news for the festival. Also good news, we continue to get very generous, large donations from various sponsors. And let's see, as far as the festival goes, we have about just, I think, don't quote me on this, but between like 40, maybe 45 vendors at this time, informational as well as retail. And we are going to have a children's area. The North Clackamas Parks and Rec District will be involved with part of that. And also too, we hope to have a classic car show. There will be the live music all day. And then I think what people will particularly enjoy will be the food, wine, and beer behind the Awakening Coffee Shop. And that will be all day from 11 to 4, but Anne and Joe, the co-owners, will extend their hours from after the festival from 4 to 8 o'clock for those of you who would like to stay afterwards. So things are moving along really well, and we're very excited.
Great. We look forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
We have update Rich Nippon. Do you want to do CPO update and a CERT report?
Sure. Let me start out with a CERT report. CERT has gone to a new system, and so if you were signed up to get CERT notifications and emails, you can look on, it's called Oak Lodge CERT, and you can sign up. I will get a sign up into the newsletter and the website, so you can look at that soon, but it may take me a week or so to get to it. That's it for CERT. Though we're always open, and we're always hoping that the big earthquake doesn't happen. Our job is to be prepared in case it does, but there are lots of emergencies besides earthquakes that we prepare for. On that line, I'm also a member of the county's Emergency Preparedness Council. We had a first meeting 4 months ago, almost. It's supposed to meet every 3 months. Our next meeting is actually in June. At that point, we hope to make another meeting, which will probably be after the fire season. So the Emergency Preparedness Council isn't preparing very well, in case you get to talk to anybody to tell them. There is a disaster person at the county whose job it is to be prepared. But I know a lot of people would like to have input. I did hear on the radio that our smoke and fire season is supposed to begin mid-July this year, based on how the rains are predicted and the winds are predicted. That's it for CERT. The CPO Summit, which is a lot of CPOs from the county meeting together to decide what needs to be done. There were a few things. First of all, we will not have a meeting next month. There will be a leaders meeting with the Board of County Commissioners. The leaders are mayors and CPO members and Hamlet representatives, people like that. And the agenda will be fire. June 21st is the meeting. And we want to find out what the county's doing and what the preparedness is, so that hopefully we either get answers or understand what questions need to be answered. That's the basic interest of everybody in the county. Second of all, the tolling is of interest. The 205 tolling, which doesn't directly affect us. We don't expect to get a lot of traffic in Oak Lodge from it, though people may take 99 instead of 205 at some point. The state has made an agreement that the tolling is going to go into place. The Abernathy Bridge is going to be the first place they do anything. It might be a few years until we get a third lane. But they did agree that if the rest of the state decides not to implement tolling on roads, that they will then stop tolling on the section of 205. That's going to be the first place it gets tolled. It may be 3 years before that happens, but at least we know that Clackamas won't be the only place it gets tolled in total. The inactive CPOs, the county's making an adjustment. The CPO is planning an organization, and the whole idea of there are areas where CPOs are not active, and we discussed having areas that may be adjacent to those areas that may be affected by it, because basically we're all in the same fishbowl, that they get notified of plans. So that for us in Oak Lodge, for instance, things will happen in Jennings Lodge that are right on the border. Jennings Lodge will be notified about it, and Oak Lodge won't be notified about it until it's too late to talk about it. And so the county's going to start implementing being able to hear about your neighboring CPOs, whether they're active or not active, that you'll be able to hear about them. The last thing is that the county supplies $150 to CPOs a year to do the things that they need to do, including mailboxes and postage and things like that, which is wholly inadequate to the expenses that we run into. And on top of that, they require that we spend the money first and then submit a bill for it. And then they evaluate it, decide if they're going to pay us or not. Just as a reference, Hamlet's, which may or may not be bigger than CPOs, get like $1,200 with the same requirement that they submit bills and gets evaluated. And so the CPO Summit is trying to get the Board of County Commissioners to increase the amount of money that the CPOs, including ours, get in order to advertise what we get and try to get more people involved and get more businesses involved and become a real community organization, not just a planning organization. And that's all that I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Are there any announcements from the floor, from the group?
Oh,
Susan?
yeah, Valerie, I just wanted to say there was a passing comment that Paul made about the transition to authority having been granted by the county commission, but I wanted to thank you again for your support, and Rich particularly gets the gold star for having testified in support at that second hearing as well. So thank you very much. It was very significant.
Great. Suzanne, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suzanne, you muted yourself.
Sarah, Suzanne or Sarah? Sorry.
Sarah, you're unmuted. Why don't you go ahead and then we'll let Suzanne.
Yeah. Quick question. Are we still doing the fundraiser promotion at Five Guys?
Yes.
Yes. Apparently, yes. The answer is
Okay.
Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes. And if you go, Sarah, on our website, it tells you hdog.org under support. Click on support. It tells you when the next date is. We just had the third opportunity on May 21st, and I don't have on the top of my head when it is in June. And June will be the last opportunity to participate in that fundraiser. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah. Is it something that's being communicated to the public other than this group? If they're not signed up, is there other ways of getting the word out?
We have posted it on our Facebook page, as well as Instagram, and also it's on our website. I have a group mailing list, an email list that I also had used to send out notification about it. And then nextdoor.com. Nextdoor.com. Yes. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. And then I just wanted to add one more thing. Tomorrow, Thursday at 2:00 is our general meeting for the month of May. And there is a Zoom invite since it's a virtual meeting. So if you are interested in attending and you're not on our group mailing list, then simply email me and to request an invite, and I can send that off to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So in the absence of other announcements from the floor, I just want to go over quickly here our future meetings that we have. Our next general meeting will be June 22nd, 7:00. And I'd like to let you know at this time that Captain Carrie Shanklin will be there to give an update from the Clackamas Fire District. So we will be talking about fire at our general and preparation at our general meeting. And then our other meetings, as you can see, are on the last on the fourth Wednesday of each month. Our next board meeting will be 6:45 on June 6th. And we meet as a board, as a public meeting every other month. So with that, we've come to the close of our meeting. Anita, your hand is up. Did you have something else?
Yeah, I was actually hoping to give one of the ABC reports. I didn't realize we'd already moved on to announcements. Is there time?
Yes, please go right ahead and do that. We had very few tonight, so Joseph had just dropped them off though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is related to the Parks District, and just on a news front, Milwaukee might be leaving NCPRD, but I'm not going to go into any detail about that. Excuse me. I think they're going to be in mediation between, well, the city of Milwaukee and NCPRD. And another thing I wanted to talk about was, excuse me, 2 examples of community advocacy that actually make a difference. And I know that we often feel that they don't, but in the unincorporated areas of the district, there's a property called the Justice property, which is in the southeast. It's southeast of us. And the property was going to be sold off by NCPRD to pay for something else in the district. But the neighbors got together, they started a Friends of Justice Property Park, and they advocated, they wrote an article to the newspaper, and they brought it up to DAC members, and a number of us helped them advocate. And so now it's on the capital projects list. So it's not a guarantee that it's going to be made into a park, but it certainly isn't about to be sold. And the other one is HDOG has advocated for New Urban High School's open field, which is on the trolley trail, to become a park. It was on its way to becoming a park, and then all of the officials involved left their positions, and the whole thing just went quiet, just went dark. But HDOG has brought it up with NCPRD and gotten DAC members on board to also advocate for it. So now it's also on the capital projects list and in the budget. So that's another success story. And just a few days ago, we had a meeting generated not by NCPRD, but by community members to collect input and get people teamed up together to work for what we to generate and advocate for what we want in our parks district in the unincorporated areas. And a number of you attended that meeting, and thank you very much. And interesting things came up in the conversation, ideas I wouldn't have thought of myself. And so it was a good session. And we're going to have another one on June 15th. And it's in Thelma's newsletter. It will be on NCPRD's website, the link to the Zoom meeting. And I'll also send it to the OGCC board in case you could send it out. And so I just wanted to say, please consider coming at 7 p.m. on June 15th to a public meeting that's community-led, not led by NCPRD, even though they're helping us host it. So that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. There was a question in the chat asking about updates on the housing regulations from our last meeting, and we did vote to send some suggestions in. And I just want to say that our letter was received, and at the Board of County Commissioner meeting, they did thoroughly discuss those things, but they decided to go with what they already had and didn't include any of those suggestions. But you can listen to that meeting online. I always find it interesting to listen to our Board of County Commissioners as they deliberate, so that you can go to their website and listen to that meeting. So with that, I think it is time to adjourn unless there is anything else coming up, and tonight we are actually done in time to have a little social time. If people would like to stick around and talk to one another. So I want to thank everyone for your attendance, and hope to see you next month.